The world is a ball. The earth is a ball. The entire universe is in a globular shape, or at least that's how it appears. There's a physical reason, a very simple physical reason. It's called gravity. But Kabbalah, mysticism, doesn't necessarily follow Newton around, or even Einstein, yeah? Teda B'chlal doesn't follow people around. In Kabbalah, there's a very, very different reason for why the shape of the world, the earth, the solar system, the galaxies are not balls, they're frequently discs, like CDs, they're flat, but they're round. And the universe is shaped this way that's not connected to physical laws and physical phenomena, but rather there's a mystical reason. The mystical reason why the earth is a ball is because it's like a fetus, it's unborn. A fetus that's unborn is curled up into a ball. That's how the Gemara says it, and the Kabbalah says it also, Tlas Klil and Gut Tlas. Now, a woman who's pregnant, yeah, you could see that she's pregnant, but you have no idea what she's carrying. You just see a ball, a distension, yes? What's the mysticism for this? The mysticism for this is that there is an entity that has a lot of details. And the details are not only disparate, but they're distinct. They're not only separate, but they're different levels. There's a brain, there are eyes, there's a heart, there's lungs, and there's fingers and toes, and fingernails and hair. All kinds of levels where you literally have first priority, second priority, third priority, fourth priority, fifth priority, and so forth. But in a ball, none of those differences are noticed. They're there, but you don't see them. You don't see them until the child is born, it emerges, and there is an event which is called in halacha boineh. When you take a baby and you stretch out its limbs, you're building. It's a shaila if you're allowed to do it on Shabbos. It's considered building this, taking this very, very, very plastic, very pliable, very flexible body, which has been in a curled up shape, and then of course, in addition to hitting it on the back and making it cry so that it takes in oxygen, which is an incredible miracle as they explain it, there is also stretching this baby out, making it into a being that has arms and legs and a head and a torso that are separated. They're pulled apart in such a way that there is what will ultimately be a vertical being. Babies can't stand, but they're designed to stand eventually. The head is going to be above the body is going to be above the thighs are going to be above the legs are going to be above the feet, and so on. So the unborn baby is a curled up precedent of a complete person. How do you say it in the world? It says in Torah there are Asara Kedushas. There's 10 levels of holiness in the world. In distinct places. The Holy of Holies is the highest Kedusha. The Heichal is the second Kedusha. The Ulam was the third Kedusha. Bein Ha'ulam L'Mizbeach is the fourth Kedusha. Ezras Keinim was the fifth Kedusha. Ezras Yisrael is the fifth Kedusha. Ezras Noshim is the sixth Kedusha. The Har HaBayis is the seventh Kedusha. Yerushalayim is the eighth Kedusha. Ayares, Hamukaf, Chema, walled cities all over Israel are the ninth Kedusha. And all of Eretz Yisrael is the 10th Kedusha. There's 10 level of holiness. But 10 level of holiness is not a world. 10 level of holiness is the center of the world. Israel. Now you tell someone Israel is the center of the world. The center of the world is either the poles or the equator. Israel is neither here nor there. Right? The center of the world, if you want to identify the center of a ball, balls don't have centers. Balls, every point is the same. But when we talk about the center of the earth, we talk about the center of the earth in relationship to the sun. In relationship to the sun, the center of the earth will either be the two poles or the equator. But not Israel. What's the tenets? Because the earth is in a state of pregnancy. It's unborn. And because it's unborn, you don't see that the head is on top. When the Gemara says that Israel is the highest point in the world, and Yerushalayim is going to be that Nasada Mil, it's going to be at one point. The Gemara says Har HaMoriah is going to be taller than Mount Everest. As they state in the Gemara, based on the pasuk when Mashiach comes. Pshatas is lane. How can you have a mountain taller than Mount Everest, and on top of it you have a base HaMikdash, and people are climbing up being makir karbanis, as they state in the Gemara. Whatever the Pshat is. But Eretz Yisrael's Gaveya Mikol Ha'aratzis. Israel is the highest point on the earth. Is that true? We know that the lowest place on the earth is in Israel. Yam HaMelech. But the highest point? So again, what the physics is, I don't know. But the spirituality is that you're looking at a baby that's curled up. And it makes sense that you can't identify where the head is and where the arms are and where the legs are. But if you understood how to unfurl, if you knew how to open up this world, and instead of it being curled up, it should be stretched out in such a way where it isn't simply taking the, what they do in a map. You take the globe and you flatten it. And of course then you have the problem of area, because when you have a ball, you're missing about a quarter of the area that you're going to have on a flat surface, as everybody understands in the mathematics. So what happens? All of a sudden the Antarctica is bigger than it really is because it takes up more place on paper because it's on the bottom of the earth, which is map makers' problems, right? It's not simply a question of flattening out the globe, but it's identifying the differences. What's the difference between the Antarctica and Africa? The weather? That's so what? It's land. The idea that it's all holy isn't measured in how big it isn't measured in how warm or how cold it is, whether it's raining or it's not raining. It's measured in Kedusha. To take the earth and flatten it out and identify the Kedusha is to identify it's all the head. And I don't know what's going to be the arm, I don't know what's going to be the legs, but each level is going to be distinct. There's going to be higher and lower aspects of the whole world, inner and outer aspects of the whole earth. That's how it works. That's the mysticism of how the world is a ball, it's a globe. It's a fetus. It's an ibur, underdeveloped. On this earth, the aim is to put people with the mystical task of revealing, of giving birth to this earth, if you will. Of showing the Adam, of revealing, of taking this world, which is a globe, that by itself doesn't show distinct Kedushas, and you don't have to flatten it out. The world is going to remain a globe, mistama. Imagine, Mashiach comes, the laws of gravity are going to still make the world into a ball, but you'll know that Israel is holy. You'll know that the Holy of Holies is the brain of the entire earth. Just like a human being's brain sits in his brain case on top of his body. You'll be able to see distinction. So you understand the difference between the world as we know it and the world as Kabbalah sees it potentially. So when you talk about Golus versus Geula, exile versus redemption, and when we talk about redemption, we mean two things. Number one, the time of the first Beis HaMikdash. And number two, the times of Mashiach. Those are times of redemption. Otherwise, we're talking about a time of exile. The second Beis HaMikdash, for the most part, is also like an exile. You could correlate it to these two. Exile is like the world in a state of pregnancy, and redemption is the world in a state of birth. Exile is the world in a state where although you have a head, and you have eyes, and you have a mouth, and you have a heart, and you have lungs, and you have fingers and toes, and skin, and hair, and fingernails, it's all a big ball. It's a chunk. In the time of the Beis HaMikdash, these distinctions exist. Just like in the Holy Land, closer to the Holy of Holies is holier, more distant from the Holy of Holies is less holy. Outside of Eretz Yisrael, it's the same thing. The areas bordering Yisrael immediately are not anymore holy, they're chayil, but they're closer to Kedusha than the islands and the most remote parts of the earth, which are very far away. And in a holy world, in other words, in a world where the Shekhinah rests in the Beis HaMikdash, every point in the world knows, I'm a finger, I'm a toe, I'm a hair follicle. Because its relationship to Kedusha separates it, the way your body is separated into distinct aspects. And in Zman HaGos, it's all mixed up. Now, okay, I got to give you another side to the story, right? Otherwise this is quite depressing, right? The other side of the story, of course, is everybody knows that when do the biggest changes take place? Dafka in a state of pregnancy. The biggest changes that will happen in every human being happen when that human being is curled up in a ball and is not at all seen and not at all noticed, and not at all distinguished. So as far as anybody else is concerned, it's a pintele. That's when the biggest changes take place. The psychology of this, of course, is when a human being is awake, there are certain things that are too painful. Can't do it. When a person is in a numb state, he can go through the kinds of changes that while awake he wouldn't allow because it's too acute. And the nimshal is that the biggest things happen in Zman HaGolus. When the world is in a pregnancy state, when the world is in an unborn state, where everything is all mixed up, in that mix-up, tutzachepes, something is going on. I gave a shiur recently to some men, and I told them this story as an illustration. The Tzemach Tzedek had Yechidus, and he had hours, which meant to say, let's say Yechidus went from 9 till 12. 12 o'clock Yechidus ended. That's it. What if there were still people? Sorry, I come back tomorrow. And there was no list. Anybody who wanted to go to Yechidus came to Lubavitch and waited. When the Rebbe's time of Yechidus came, they pushed. If you were tougher and stronger, or if you were more respectable and people showed you respect, which is probably the case in those days, you got in sooner. Otherwise, you could wait and wait and wait. And this disorder bothered somebody. It looked undignified. He wasn't necessarily the base Hasidim getting the first appointments. So he came to the Tzemach Tzedek and protested the lack of order. Why Tzemach Tzedek has chaos? Why didn't they make a list? By the Rebbe there was a list. You imagine there would be no list over here. Ochem Vevel given the fire. A kid says, so the Tzemach Tzedek says the following, I quote, Da kommt einer, was ich darf mehr wie mir. Und kommt herzu und stuppt und stuppt und stuppt und stuppt sich zu zum Tier und stuppt ihm zurück zum Wand. Und stuppt und stuppt und stuppt und stuppt, kommt zu zum Tier und stuppt ihm zurück zum Wand. Und stuppt und stuppt und stuppt, bis kommt zu mir herein. Der Vater, wer haben, aber soll sich stuppen. In English this means as follows. Here comes a man who I need him more than he needs me. Obviously a hidden tzaddik. And he comes, no one knows who he is, yeah? He pushes, he gets till the door, and they send him flying back, yeah? So he pushes, and he pushes, and he pushes, he gets till the door, and they throw him back. Eventually he comes into me. He says, I need this whole chaos so that I should meet that man. This person would never come into Yechidus if there was appointments. He can't, because he's an istic. But the chaos allows for something to happen which couldn't happen in order. Why? Because order doesn't tolerate it. It's too high. It's too deep. What do we call this in our language? We call this in our language tshuva. Tshuva is something that's very painful. It's very extreme. It's polar by nature. And it happens in the midst of chaos. In an orderly world, God forbid, a limb is cut off, you bury it. You can't put it back on. But in the chaos, in the mishmash, in the tumult of evil, you can repair and you can reverse and so on and so forth, as we discussed over the last couple of days.